Hello, everybody. This is Research Break, brought to you by Research Rank Repeat. This is co-host Hannah.
This is co-host. I put a mint in my mouth. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know why I thought I could talk with a mint in my mouth. This is co-host Alyssa. I'm so sorry.
We don't edit
Sorry.
these, so you're going to hear all this.
Oh, of course. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. My life's been a mess recently. It's fine.
it's fine. That's pretty much what this podcast is. Anyways, this is another research break, and we are back finally with Avatar. It's been a minute since we've covered the show.
It has.
We had gotten through 4 episodes.
Yeah, we put out our last episode on March 7th, so it's been almost 2 months since then.
Yeah. You know, life gets in the way, and also, like, the show was not necessarily drawing my attention the way I can watch other shows.
We also had other stuff going on, so it was a mixture of like, I'm too depressed to watch this right now. And then now we've reached a place where it's like, okay, we can finish it.
We're still depressed, but we can
yeah.
get through it.
But we're better equipped to also watch this as well.
Are we?
I am.
I'm not. But anyways, we're here. Yeah, so we are gonna go through episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 of
we finished
Avatar,
the show. We're done.
The Netflix series. The live action though, not the animated series.
Yes.
If you clicked on hoping to hear information about the live or the animated series, you will be sorely disappointed because that is not what this is.
Well, also every other episode we've done has covered the live action show, so I feel like if you're only listening to this one, maybe go back and listen to the other ones.
Yeah. But anyways, so we have the final 4 episodes to get into. We're just gonna discuss, and maybe we'll rank some stuff at the end. We didn't talk about this, but
we did vaguely talk about this like 2 months ago.
I've forgotten. So
yeah, I had too until you just said that. But we did kind of talk about maybe we would rank a characters or top 3 or episode or something.
Yeah, this is our podcast, so we're gonna do what we want to do.
We can do whatever we want. But yeah, so we finished the show. We had 4 more episodes. 2, I feel like they were kind of grouped 2 and 2 together. So 1 was called Spirited Away and then Masks, and those were kind of tied story-wise together.
Yep.
And then the last 2 episodes were The North and Legends, and those were both grouped together in the Northern Water Tribe, which I assumed would kind of be what they do. So that kind of checked out. I feel like just on an overall front, this second half was paced better than the first half in terms of, because like the Omashu stuff was crazy, like the pacing was insane, whereas like there's so much stuff going on that I'm like, I can't even follow what's happening. So I thought they did a better job of like pacing the actual story that they put into these like 4 episodes collectively. So I appreciated that. Let's just start with that. Let's start with the positive. Okay, so do you have any like overall anything you want to share? Because then I think maybe we'll just kind of start on the first 2 grouping first. I don't know.
I just want to say, I think this text exchange me and Alyssa had last night kind of perfectly sums up this series. And it was that I texted Alyssa saying that basically I watched 3 out of 4 of the last episodes last night. Or no, two out of the 4 I watched last night. And I basically said to her, I just wish the show was a little bit better. And Alyssa responded, I wish the show was a little bit worse. And I think that's a pretty good summary of the show, because at times there's potential.
Yeah.
But then there's also these moments where I'm like, it's just not there. So it's I described it as like a very mid show where like, it's not horrible, it's not great, but there's potential. They just don't always hit on the potential.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, that pretty much sums up how I felt about this series, I think.
I think that's true. Yeah. You were like, I wish it was a little better. I'm like, I wish it was a little worse. Because I feel like, I don't hate it. I don't love it. No. I think it's fine. I think there's room for growth and improvement. And I already know they've been renewed for seasons 2 and 3.
Okay.
They already have the showrunner stepped down. So they're already getting a new showrunner and I think new writers. So it's like they're already kind of doing some change up stuff within like the actual like writing directing department. First thing I want to say, because I know I've seen things online, I don't think the acting is the problem with the show, and I've seen some people really like giving these kids a hard time about their acting and like generally being shitty, mainly to the women, which what a surprise, you know? Social media, people being, annoying to young women who are not white is really surprising. I'm totally shocked. But I'm like, we don't need to, like, you don't need to, like, take it out on, like, the kids. Like, I just, like, people are taking this too seriously.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I do think there are some issues with.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not necessarily with the acting. I think I more have an issue with some of the chemistry. I just don't feel it as much.
Oh, and that's, I agree on that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to attack like children in general is just kind of messed up. Like,
yeah, it's shitty.
It's one of those things where, like, from the most part, kids aren't going to be as good as actors. They haven't had the time or experience.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of really successful people who started off as kids, they probably weren't as great as they are now. You get time, you get experience. It's like any job.
Right.
This is what acting is. It's a job. And I know my first job at a frozen yogurt place, I definitely was not the best employee. But I've learned some lessons along the way.
You know what's funny, Hannah? I was thinking about you working at Orange Leaf today.
Oh, God.
I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about, like, I think there's, like, some state had repealed some of the child labor laws or, like, and I was like, they were talking about kids, like, working overtime and working later than they were to. And I'm like, hey, remember? I was like, I remember Hannah having to work till, like, 11, 12 p.m.
Oh, yeah, they broke labor laws for sure.
I was like, ooh. I was like, yep, I remember that.
Yeah. My point is that, like, no one's going to be amazing as a younger kid, teenager, when they haven't, and a lot of them haven't had a ton of acting experience. So yeah,
because part of the casting process of this was, like, you want to scout new talent and, like, up and coming talent. So, like, you're giving these kids the opportunity to grow with their characters, which I feel like is fine. And I don't expect them all to be amazing,
Right. They can't all be Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, exactly. They can't all be Lindsay Lohan. I don't think the problem, at least for me, the acting, it's like the connection of the actor with the character, I feel like sometimes doesn't always fit.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's more the issue, but I hate, sometimes the internet is the worst thing ever.
Oh, it usually is.
Yeah, toxic fan bases are some of the worst things where, like, sometimes I don't even want to be associated with certain things because I'm like, I don't want to be associated with these people, like, people's fan bases who are, like, awful and terrible to people, especially, like, because it's like the anonymity of the internet allows for people to be incredibly shitty and say whatever they want without consequences.
Do you remember, like, I know you didn't really watch the show that much, but there was an actress on Flash who got, like, completely destroyed for, like, her character, Iris, the actress who plays Iris.
What do you know? She wasn't white. What a surprise.
Yeah, but also it's, like, it is, like, embarrassing. Like, as someone who watched the show, I was like, I hope, and I'm sure they know that not all the fans feel that way. It's just a select group of people. But yeah, especially to go after kids. And I agree. I don't think their acting is necessarily the issue. It's a little bit, like you said, the connection to the character and a little bit of, like, that chemistry between some of the people. So that's, like, my main issue. But yeah, I mean, they're kids. Like, I don't know what you
Let's not be cruel. Like, you can be critical without being cruel.
You can, because we're critical of, like, the plot and
of course,
and the pace of the show, but that's, like, stuff that is negative about the show, but it's not attacking, like, a single person. So
exactly,
let's all be a little bit kinder to each other.
We could all use a little more kindness in the world. Would be really
guess
great.
What?
Fuck you.
It doesn't count. We don't have to be kind to each other. We're siblings.
I love how we both were, like, immediately.
Yeah,
we do. We connected.
You can be rude to your siblings if you have that sort of relationship.
Yeah,
but be kind to everyone else.
Be kind. We're kind to each other in other ways. We know this is kindness. This is
our kindness.
This is our kindness to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so
anyways,
getting that out of the way, because I did want to address that, because
yes.
I had seen, like, previously I'd seen some stuff about that, and I was like, come on, guys, like, this is it's a fucking children's show,
right?
Like, based on a children's show for children. Like, it's fine. We don't need to get this crazy. We don't need to get this upset. But
correct.
Back to the show.
Yes,
we're gonna get crazy.
Yeah.
So the first two chunks, and I'm just telling Hannah because she watched them all in quick succession, so she's got the breaking. So essentially, the Spirited Away episode is where they go to that village.
Yep.
spirit. Some people are disappearing.
Yes.
They go into the spirit world.
Yes.
Where randomly Wan Shi-tong, the owl, shows up for some reason.
Right. And the
And
fox.
he's just there, and you're like, why are you here and not in your library? I think they just wanted to have him show up, and I'm like, okay, whatever. He looked cool, like, you know, the design was cool. And then you get, instead of Ko, the face stealer, being in the Northern Water Tribe, they bring him into this episode here.
Right.
Okay, what a great look. I was into that Ko like design. I was like, this looks great for live action. That I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Appropriately scary, appropriately well designed. I approve. And the movement was fine too. I was fine with that. I mean, on the flip side, you've got Zuko using June, she's got that I think it's a sheer shoe is what
like
it's
the
called.
Tracker, yeah.
Yeah, it can smell the scents. So he's using her to track Aang.
Yes.
And then Aang finds out the only way to defeat Ko is to talk to Roku. So then he goes to talk to Roku, gets captured, Blue Spirit.
Yes.
And Zuko backstory. And essentially that's like our 2 chunked together episodes.
Yes.
That's like the story for that.
Right.
So just to give a little recap of what the general plot is for Hannah and the audience, if it's also been a while since you watched,
right,
or you just don't care, or if you do care, you know?
Yeah.
But so where do I want to start? Let me think about how I want to talk about this. So I felt like some of the changes they made in this episode made sense. Like the way they kind of restructured things, I think worked. Like I was fine with Ko being in this group of episodes as opposed to being in the Northern Water Tribe.
Right.
Especially because we hadn't met Roku yet. So I'm like, you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah.
You get that. You get like Sokka and Katara are out of commission for like 2 whole episodes, which that kind of felt bad because we barely get enough of like the group dynamic as it is anyway in the show.
Yeah.
I was like, I get the tool is there, and because they have to be gone from the Blue Spirit episode, and if we're not setting them up as being sick, then I'm like, I guess you got to have some way to make them not there.
Right.
I get it. And I liked that kind of stuff, but on the flip side, I really feel like we lost some of the importance of the Storm episode by not having the Aang and Zuko's together, like learning about their past at the same time parallels. Like it loses some of that importance by not having those things occurring at the same time. Because I feel like, again, and I'm going to keep saying this, for some reason, they get Zuko. They get his storyline. They do it well. They get his character. The actor gets the character. All the Zuko stuff works for me in the show and did continue to work throughout the 4 episodes. So like all the Zuko backstory, I liked some of the stuff they expanded upon with like Ozai actively like holding him and burning his face. I'm like, holy God, that's some crazy shit right there. And that stuff all worked pretty well for me. I really liked the addition that because this was the same in the animated show. I don't know if you were still watching the animated show. Okay, that's fine. I was just gonna see because I can like talk a little bit more. So in the like animated show, when Zuko like speaks up in like the war meeting, they're talking about sacrificing like a division. I think they were maybe the 41st division.
41st, yeah.
I think they were also that in the animated show, but or maybe they were just like the 40. Yeah, I think that was the same. And he's like, how can you sacrifice those troops? Like they love their country. Right. I really liked this addition that his crew is that crew. Like essentially he saved their lives by like Ozai is like, you love him so much, take him with you. You're banished, you're gone. Jin's like, get out of here, bye. And I really liked that they made his crew that like that division that was going to be sacrificed because that's not in the original show, and I thought that made a lot of sense and like worked really well with like the characterizations of stuff. Yeah, so I really liked that. Was like probably my favorite new addition, like new story added to the show. Yeah, at least for these 2 episodes. But actually it probably is for the whole show, to be honest, if we're
Right.
thinking about it. But then the Aang, some of the Aang stuff again, I'm like, I don't know. I did not like the Roku experience. I just feel like we lost that character.
Yeah.
It just, well, one, it's hard to do the Roku voice. Like his voice is so iconic. The viral, I
Yeah.
can't do, clearly I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really love his characterization. And also, this is something I did know. It's something I got spoiled on because when I was trying not to get spoiled, where I read that it's like they're not going to talk about the comment. And I was like, what? What do you mean they're not going to talk about the comment? But they don't. Roku is like, whatever. And they don't bring up the comment. The comment is not a plot structure that our main characters know about because there's like a little teaser at the end of the
At the
show
end,
where they're
yeah.
like, oh, we got a
But
little
it's only the
calendar.
Ozai and
Right. And some random
yeah.
fire sage who knows Water Nation history for some
Right.
reason. We'll get to that. But anyway, so there's some things I liked, and mainly all the Zuko stuff. I thought the Blue Spirit stuff was pretty well done too, choreography and whatnot. That episode part was pretty like to form of the original show, but some of the like the Aang stuff, just like I don't know, same thing. It just doesn't hit right.
Yeah.
Doesn't hit the same. I liked the Aang Zuko dialogue after they got out. Like I thought that was nice to get a little more like conversation between them, but I don't know. I'm still iffy on Aang.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue with this show, and it has been this entire time, is like I don't feel like the main three characters are like
Oh
working.
yeah.
And like it's
Yeah.
weird to have I remember talking about I think when we started this, we talked about things about the animated show and like what we
Yeah.
wanted to see and like what our favorite parts were. And I remember saying like the dynamic between the main three is like that was my favorite part of the animated show. And it's every scene with them feels weird or they're not in scenes together really. And it's just
Yeah.
there's something weird where I was watching these episodes and I was like, I just want to get back to the Zuko part because I don't care
I
about the main
know.
storyline, which is an issue.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. I
I
agree.
agree. The Zuko, Iroh, even like Azula, like
Yeah.
their all of their scenes really work for me. I feel like they've
Yeah.
figured out those characters and like really embodied them.
I have one problem with the Azula stuff, but
Right.
otherwise I'm mostly am positive on that.
Right.
Agreed.
It's more
Yeah.
that I'm more intrigued by that
Yeah.
storyline. And so I think I don't know. I just think it's hard when I'm enjoying the Zuko, Iroh, that kind of stuff, and then it switches to the Aang and Katara and Sokka, and I'm just kind of like I want to get through that to get back to Zuko's storyline.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean the Aang and Zuko scenes were nice. It was nice to see them have like more of an understanding of each
Mhm.
other.
Yeah.
I did like the escape scene with them, the two of them escaping,
I
like the
also
tower.
do like the newer kind of characterization of Zhao in this
Yeah,
season. And also because I
yeah,
like the actor. Okay, the another thing I had to look it up because I was going crazy. I'm like, why are all these people from Lost?
yeah.
So, of course, Daniel Day Kim, who played
Right.
Jin in Lost. He's the Fire Lord.
Zhao was
Um,
from Lost too,
Zhao
right?
was Miles. He was a
Yeah.
character from Lost. And then that one fire sage was the Dharma scientist guy.
Hmm.
And I
Interesting.
was like staring at him. I'm like, that guy's from Lost too. And I had to look. I was like, was there a casting director on Lost also working on this? And I could not find any links from either people from Lost
Yeah.
working on this or people on this working on Lost.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but
Yeah.
Lost is
But
dominating
yeah,
the
I just
show.
feel like the only reason right now that I'm at all invested in the show is because of Zuko, to
Yeah,
be honest.
I agree.
I think that like
Actually, I take it back. I also think Sokka's actors doing a real good job of portraying Sokka.
uh, yes, but it's hard for me with his scenes because although I think he's doing a good job, I miss his connection with
Oh
the
yeah,
other two.
yeah. I
And
think
so I
like
think
his characterization works, but again, I think you're right that we're
right,
missing
but
that link. Yeah,
yeah, it makes it hard for me to like fully be invested in him because he doesn't have the link with the other two. But
yeah,
my thing I wanted to say really quick is just that I think Zuko in terms of like just like an animated character in a character in this, I think like he has one of the best character arcs of any TV show,
oh
of any
yeah,
character on a TV show.
absolutely.
And so I think that's what's keeping me invested, but honestly something about the Aang Katara connection isn't there for me. That's what I was talking about a little bit with like the chemistry.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel that connection, and there's a little bit of a disconnect for me with Aang. Um, and yeah, so there's those are the issues, but yeah, the Zuko like Iroh, that's what I'm there for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting with these episodes. So when they're in the spirit world, they end up they bring up the fog of lost souls, which is something that we learn about in Korra, but never actually shows up
Mhm.
in Avatar. So I thought that was nice. I'm like, okay, cool. We get
Okay.
something from a different show, but in the same universe. So it makes sense. But I really thought, oh my God, it was so brutal. The Katara's mom,
Oh
like,
yeah.
because in the show, this is actually something we don't see until book 3. Like right at the end of the show, we learn about like what happened to their mom. Because we know she's
Right.
dead. Like that's something that's brought up. You actually like, and it's like they don't show it in the show clearly because it's Nickelodeon. It's implied, right? That she gets
Yes.
killed by a firebending officer. But in this one, they just like full on like she's on fire. And it
Yeah.
was like I got emotional. I was like, oh, I was like, that is
Yeah.
brutal. Oh, it was rough. It was
It
rough
was
to
hard to
watch that.
watch,
But
and like
it was well done. But it was
I thought it
like,
was really well
oh,
acted by
yeah.
Katara's actress
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
or no, I guess it's
The younger
a
version
younger
of her.
version,
Yeah.
but still
Yeah.
like you can really feel that emotion.
Like it was really like, yeah, you
Yeah,
could
and
really feel it.
we knew the show was going to be more brutal.
Yeah.
Even just from the first episode, but also because it's not Nickelodeon, so
Yeah.
they don't have to cater towards like
I mean, to be fair, The Legend of Korra sucked the air out of a woman's lungs and
yeah.
suicide bombed two
Yeah, I
people.
mean Legend of Korra definitely was more like
It was, yeah,
intense.
oh, way more intense
Yeah,
than
but
I think they could get away with a little
and I
more
think
by
too,
then. Yeah.
something about seeing those scenes in a live action as opposed to animated, there's a lot more of an impact because it feels a
Yeah.
lot more like real.
I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought that scene was cool. The yeah, I mean, like I do think having 6 and 7 as kind of a two-part thing, and then eight
Yeah.
and nine, or
It's 5 and 6, 7, 8.
5 and 6, 7 and 8. I thought that it was smart to do it that way. Because I think our problem with the first four was that it was very like they threw a lot into one episode and then it was like you just couldn't keep track. So I think spreading it out a little bit definitely worked to an advantage for me. Um, but yeah, there's just something still about the two plot lines being Aang, the group, Zuko. This one's a lot higher for me, and it's
Yeah.
hard when you switch back and forth to like go so high up and then down. It just doesn't, unfortunately, doesn't work that well for me.
Yeah. I want to touch back just because I mentioned a little bit earlier, but my one problem with the Azula scenes, because I
Yeah,
do think they work. I think it makes sense to kind of introduce her in now, because she's gonna become a huge player throughout the rest of the
right.
show, is I don't understand why we have May and Ty Lee in this season because they
Yeah,
don't do anything. They
no,
just stand there.
yeah.
And I think like in my like the way I'm like trying to understand it, I'm like they must be there so Azula has a reason to say the things she's saying because she's talking to someone,
Right.
right?
They need some sort of soundboard.
But it feels really silly to have them literally do nothing. We don't know anything. Like, clearly, we know who these characters are because we've seen the show. But if you're
Right.
watching this for the first time, you're just like, who are these two random girls hanging out? And they're just standing next to her and just like standing there.
Yeah.
I don't know what that sound is. Oh, there's a weird sound outside. Um, and I thought that was silly, where I'm like, in the original show, Zula recruits them to help her, like, capture the Avatar, whatever. I don't know. Whatever her mission is. My lighting is that better? No. Okay, let me hold it like this. Where she goes and gets them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why couldn't we also just have done this where like, they're not in the show yet? Because you know how she had those like two old lady advisors
Yeah.
that really don't matter that much, but they're just
Like
kind of
have them
there.
be in
Yeah, I was
it.
like, have them be the
Yeah.
people she's talking
Because
to.
it does
And because she
feel
is training right now. Like
right. It
yeah.
having them in it feels very like Mean Girls click girls in the background just to like be there as the
Yeah.
entourage. But yeah, you're right. You could have had different characters be there just to be a soundboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The light. It's like the sun angle is perfect where it's reflecting onto something. I don't know what. Is that? I have my blinds drawn too, Hannah.
It's fine. Just keep it like that.
That's crazy.
It's mood lighting.
All right, let me do this actually.
Can you turn your computer a little bit?
I have these wooden boards I can maybe try to position.
Just say, if anything, just like turn your computer a little bit. Oh, there you go.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's better.
I have these wooden cutting boards that yeah. Okay, I think that works. That'll work. Okay. So I feel like we could have just gotten those 2 advisors instead of
Right.
May and Ty Lee. I don't know. It just felt like a little silly to have them when they're not going to do anything. Like, they didn't even fight. We don't know anything about them. They're just kind of standing there. So I don't know. That was the one part that bothered me about the Azula scenes, where I'm like, we could have had those 2 random old women advisors, and I feel like it would have been a little better. But I liked the characterization of Ozai. I like that he like thinks he's being a good dad by doing these things.
Right.
And like cares about his kids in a weird, gross, like abusive, manipulative way. But like, I think it works. So like all the Fire Nation stuff I liked. I kind of like the Azula is like secretly feeding stuff to Zhao.
Yeah.
Zuko kind of deal, you know. Like, that stuff worked. And I liked like those changes. Like, I feel like the changes made within that scope, like Fire Nation stuff, like worked pretty well for me.
Right.
Again, and I agree, I was more interested in that stuff than I was like the main plot.
Yeah.
So one other thing I wanted to touch on, because I thought it was interesting, is we get like Zuko and Iroh are in this bar. It's where they meet June. And they're basically like asking people if they've seen the Avatar, and they're like, "Oh, I heard they help people cross the divide. I heard they took out a volcano." So they're basically referencing episodes from the animated show. And it's like, "Oh, call out, look at this episode." It felt a little weird to me that we're just like assuming all the stuff in the show is canon. Like, all the things from the animated show, these episodes actually happened. We're just like hearing about them secondhand. And that felt a little weird, where I was like, I get it's a callback. Like, they wanted to like do a little callback, but it did feel a little weird where I'm like, I just, you know, it's like,
it's one of those like Easter egg. Like, I feel like shows do that just to like make the because sometimes fans like when there's like those random things that get mentioned. Like, I feel like the CW shows do that a lot with like things from like comics or stuff like that. Just it kind of gets mentioned, and some people will like it, some people like, to me, like I didn't remember any of that, so I was like, I don't know, because you didn't watch it.
I think what they're trying to do is also show a passage of time, but I feel like this season did a really bad job of showing how much time has passed.
Yeah.
And I worried about that. We could talk about that when we get to like the end and like thoughts about book, like the second season, but I'm a little worried about that into season 2, because time is a lot more important to the storyline. So I was like, I think that's what they're trying to do, is also trying to show like we've passed time from Amashu to now, like they've done all this stuff in the meantime.
Yeah.
But again, it's like those character moments between the 3 of them are off screen. We don't get to see them.
Right.
It's the same thing with like Momo and Appa, and we'll get to something at the very end of the show, but like Momo and Appa like don't really get any screen time, and I'm sure they're expensive to animate.
I was gonna say, I guess I imagine it's harder to have them like in stuff.
But it's like Momo like shows up in what, episode 3 or 2? I don't know. Episode 3, and then we like don't see him again until the finale. And it was a bit weird.
Yeah, he came up in like one of the episodes prior, like
he's just kind of standing there.
Yeah.
He's not like doing anything. Like, he's not silly or like doesn't have a personality. Same with Appa. Appa doesn't really like, you don't see Appa doing anything. Like, he's not eating food or like, you know.
I feel like that's one of those things though, like with live action Dumbo, where it's so hard to show that personality on an actual like in cartoon, it's easier to do. And so we had that issue with Dumbo, and I think that's probably similar. And maybe that's why they don't show him as much, just because it's harder to show. And like you said, it's probably more expensive to add.
Sure. It's kind of hard though, where you're like,
yeah. Right. I mean, that's one of the setbacks of going from animated, because I feel like animated, there's so many possibilities. There's so much you can do. And I feel like when you go to a live action, you kind of have to sometimes sacrifice some of that stuff.
Yeah. So I'm curious on your take on this, Hannah, because so this was something I had accidentally read. I told you, I think when we started, that I had accidentally read the headlines of like 2 articles or something.
Yeah.
And just like, and I'm like, I don't want to read that. So the one thing was, I read something that said that they weren't having the comet be like the time constraint because you in the I think you got to the Roku Palace episode. I think we were
Yeah.
about there when I think I'd watched that episode with you. But essentially Aang goes to the palace, he meets Roku. Roku's like, the Fire Lord's gonna harness the comet. You have to do it in like a year. Basically, he gives you a year timeline. You gotta master the elements, you gotta defeat the Fire Lord. And I accidentally briefly read it and then I read a little more because I already had read the title and I was like, well, I already know this. I might as well see what they're saying. But I think it was like either the director or one of the showrunners or someone was like, because again, you're doing live action. It's what we have with Stranger Things where these kids are like age,
Yeah.
we're into one more season and they're all in their 20s, right?
Yeah.
So it's like because you have children, you can't like the show can't exist on a year's time frame.
Right.
So they said that they wanted to not have the show constricted by a timeline, which I get, but I'm like, it's
Yeah.
a bit weird that it's like that element being gone means that the like scope of the show is a bit different.
Yeah. And
Which can be fine. I don't know
yeah.
what's gonna come of that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's kind of one of the things like what I just said, it's the power of animation versus having live action. Like you said, like they're gonna look older just because some of them are younger to begin
Yeah.
with and you notice age differently. So yeah, again, I think it's one of those things that we knew there were gonna be
Yeah.
differences. We didn't know in what scale or what scope, but
Yeah.
things were gonna come up just because of the nature of it. Um, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Are you ready to move on to the second two episodes, or did you have more on the?
Let me see if I don't know, I wrote a lot of notes, so let me see if I had anything else. I thought the one thing I want to touch on with June, I thought her implementation was fine in the show. So she in the original show she shows up in the Bato when they run into Bato and like you know how Sokka has that flashback where he's done this like ship dodging, ice dodging thing. So
Yes.
they do that in the show like because he was like, "Oh, I didn't get to do that because Dad left before I could do it." So him and Bato and Katara do it. And that's why like Aang steals like the weird like water report. It's like weird. I don't like the episode. It's one of my least favorite episodes of the show. So I was like, I am glad I don't really care that we didn't cover it. But June shows up in that episode, like she tracks Katara's necklace, and then that's how they find Aang. And I'm like, it works fine to do it this way because I like the character.
Hmm.
I thought our character was also done well in the live action, so I was like, this makes sense to throw her into like, okay, we gotta track Aang down in
Right.
this way. So I wanted to say I thought that change worked. Um, I thought it was also a little weird to have Gyatso be in the spirit world, but like
Yeah.
only for like 5 minutes. I was kind of confused
Yeah.
by that. Um, that made it was kind of confusing to me. So I don't really know what to make of that. I think that they like because I think something I gathered from when they did Kyoshi, but I feel like that it kept going is that instead of having like Roku be like Aang's guide, they wanted to kind of separate that into like Kyoshi and Kurik and Roku and then Gyatso, I
Right.
guess showing up briefly to kind of be act as his mentors and guides. And I think that works. Like I'm fine with that change. I just thought it was weird that it was like I'm in this I didn't move on from death. I went to the spirit world, but then also, sorry, I'm only available for like one conversation and then I'm gone. So it was just like a little weird to me, that specific like scene. Um yeah, let's see. Mass Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to say is Zhao's little scribe guy, I thought was great when he's like, I want you to
Yeah.
write this write my speech.
And
It's
then
gotta
he's like,
be
"What? Stop
full."
writing that."
Yeah. So I liked that character. I thought that was fun. Um Okay, yeah. Otherwise, I don't have anything else written down. I was just double checking.
Yeah.
I think I did really like the mass episode. I thought that was maybe my favorite
That
episode.
was my favorite because of like
Yeah, because it was
I felt
really
like
Zuko
it was
focused.
very Zuko focused, and then I felt like getting Aang and Zuko together was like at least I was like, oh, like I do feel like this dynamic between the two of them, and it's nice to see that they have some similarities. Especially if you're someone who didn't watch like the animated show, you don't
Yeah,
really know. So I agree. I think that was my favorite. And also like I think the action was done really well in that one. And it flowed the best of all of them. And
Yeah.
it's Zuko centric, so
I
like
know.
yeah, I'm
And
gonna
I
be a
mean,
fan.
everybody loves the Blue Spirit episode. It's like one of
Yeah.
people's favorites from the
Yeah, it
original
was
show.
cool.
So I was like, it's gonna be even in the movie. I feel like they did Blue Spirit pretty well. So I was like, I was expecting it to be good. So I
Yeah, I feel
wasn't
like
disappointed.
there's so much just to work off of like that it would be hard to mess it up
Yeah,
almost. You
right.
know?
And they did keep that segment was pretty similar, pretty spot on with the show. And I
Yeah.
thought that worked. Like, if anything, to keep pretty much the same. I was fine with
Right.
that being pretty identical. I thought that worked pretty well. But yeah, so then after the Blue Spirit, we immediately are in the Water Nation. We made it to the North Pole.
Yeah.
And things play out pretty similarly to the animated show. Some things are different. And some of those things I feel like did not work. What's your cat doing?
They're just beating the shit out of each other
Okay,
and then
that's
they ran
fun.
away. It's fine.
That's fine. It's fine. It happens. Happens to the
Yeah.
best of us.
Yeah.
So some of the things that were changed I liked. Some of the things that were changed I did not like. um, so um what do I want to say first? Hannah, we got I know this is like the more the second episode than the first, but we got the Avengers women scene. They did it again, Hannah. They did it
Yeah.
again. They girl
Yeah.
bossed us. The gate kept us. When let I just like I'm so okay. I think I'm really upset because I love Katara's character in the original show so much, and I really do not like what they're doing with her
Yeah.
character in the show. And again, I don't think it's not the actress. It's the way that her character is written. And I don't like to compare, but I have to for the sake of like this show. So in the show, Katara is learning. She has no one to learn from. She's like self-taught. And, as we go through the show, she improves and she gets better. Gets to the Northern Water Tribe. Paku's like, sorry, women can't learn water bending. Go with the healers. Go learn to heal. So Katara like does a little healing, and then she's like, screw you, old man. Like, if you're man enough to fight me, come and fight me. And then they fight, and Sokka's like, you're not gonna win. And she's like, I know, but someone has to stand up to him. They have a duel. She loses, but she does really well. And Paku's like, you know what? I changed my mind. You can train. So then Katara gets trained by a master. He's like, you're my best student ever. Then the Fire Nation invades. In this show, they get to the Northern Water Tribe. They're like, the Fire Nation's gonna attack. And they're like, hey, yeah, we know. We've scouted. We've seen them. We're ready for it. We're gonna need you to help us prepare. Haku again is like, oh, you should go learn with this one waterbender. Katara shows up. She does a healing lesson for 10 seconds. And she's like, oh, actually, woman can't fight here. And Katara's like, what the fuck? And then she leaves. So the healing lesson, she learns for like 10 seconds, leaves, challenges Paku to a fight. She loses, but then he still doesn't train her because the Fire Nation is literally invading right now.
Yeah.
So then she's like, let me on the front lines, I can help. And he's like, we can help. And he's like, we? And then it's Katara somehow standing with every woman in the water tribe. And they're like, let us fight. And he's
They
like,
don't even
sure.
fight.
Yeah, they don't. And he's like, sure, Master Katara. And I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Like, what do you mean she's a master? I was so mad. I was like, oh, like, yes, I'm so about Katara challenging the man, standing up for women everywhere, teaching the sexist men, get back off, bitch. But
Yeah.
she also has a master. She learns from a waterbending master and gets to where she's at. And then that's when Paku's like, you know what? You can keep training Aang because you're a master. Like when they eventually leave in book 2. Meanwhile, Aang hasn't even touched water. He's not even bended water one time this entire show. Katara's not even shared her water scroll with him. No water whip. He hasn't even attempted to learn because the way these 2 episodes were set up, they didn't have time. They're there for like 3 days maximum.
Yeah.
So I'm like, some of this setup just like doesn't work. because the storyline is so different. But then it's like, but why am I expected to believe that she's just somehow become amazing? She did it on her own. She's a self-made woman.
Yeah. It does feel very like I don't know, there's something so what's the word? There's something so like genuine or authentic when you like watch a show and like the person just sucks for a long time.
Yeah.
Like because they're trying something new, like they're not going to be great, but like with her it's like a very rapid like all of a sudden it's a new episode and she can shoot ice discs at people and like
Yeah.
it just keeps like it keeps like getting a lot better and like I don't know, it just felt really weird. I thought that was weird too and he was like you're the
Yeah.
master now and um like all the women gather and then he's like you can go fix the wall and I'm
I
like so
know.
basically you're telling them fuck you can't fight you can just go
I don't
build a
know. Like,
wall.
I don't know. That whole aspect of it was just not it for me. I
Yeah,
was like, the way that the paced it, it doesn't
yeah, they don't
work.
pace well.
It doesn't make sense in the way that it's formatted. The fact that we're there for the fight and not to train in waterbending, I feel like that changed the dynamic. Because again, in the original show, they're going to the Northern Water Tribe to learn waterbending. That's the
Right,
whole point. And instead, that's not the focus. Like, Kyoshi's like, hey, I got a vision for you, which is fine. We can have that. I'm not upset about that fact. It's the fact that they changed that dynamic, made things not work for like those characters. The fact that Aang isn't waterbent at all. And also the fact that they brought that up in the show. And I'm like, why are we being meta? Where they're like, you didn't even train when you were out on your adventures. Like, you didn't train. And I'm like, okay, why are you even bringing that up I was like, why didn't
yeah,
Katara and him train? They would have bonded over the water bending, Like,
right,
and I like another thing that I was thinking about because I was trying to track what episodes we didn't cover at all, like had no mention, no like because I feel like they took elements from certain episodes. And one thing that I came across, Hannah, is all of the very Katara personality, like embodying Katara episodes are missing. So we
yeah,
don't get any of that, like the where Haru and his family are in prison and she like rallies the earthbenders to fight back. You get that like determination, that like spirit is gone. The scroll, the episode where they steal the scroll and Aang's doing better than her, so she gets like mad and like pissed off, and you see that like anger and resentment in her, and like the fact that like she is improving, but like I don't know. I just like I feel like we missed Katara's character, and
yeah,
we jumped from here to here. It felt
yeah,
very like Daenerys evil queen
yes,
jump where you're like you can kind of see it, but then you're
but it just
here,
like
and
yeah,
then you're like, whoa, we jumped off the cliff. Like, how did we get up here?
right,
So I just like, and it's hard because it's like Katara's character in the original show is like she's like probably other than Zuko, probably my favorite character maybe in the original show because I feel like
right,
she's so like multi-dimensional. She carries a lot of trauma and like a lot of like is the glue that holds everyone together. She's keeping shit in line, like she's
right,
keeping everyone together, she's getting things done. Like is like the leader at times is like the leader of that group. And I appreciate the like we see her fail and we see her succeed. And I feel like here they don't give her room to fail. It's just like you're amazing. You're a prodigy.
yeah. It
Yeah.
because there's something so rewarding as a viewer seeing someone who fails multiple times then succeed.
Yeah.
Like it's like they have to earn it. They have to
Mhm.
work for it. And it feels like in this show it's like she's just every stage she's just like flying through with passing colors,
Yeah.
passing through with flying colors.
Passing with flying colors?
Yeah, maybe that's I don't know.
Yeah.
Um anyways, it feels like she's not earning it. It's just sort of like she's just moving through the stages. And so, yeah, there's something you miss a bit of that rewarding experience. And I think we're missing some of her character arc for sure. Even like Sokka is getting a pretty decent character arc.
Yeah.
Like we're at least getting to see facets of him.
Yes, I agree. I think they did a pretty
Yeah.
good job of like showing him with the inventor, like kind of working like
Yeah.
his intuitive, like
And
his
him with
like
uh what's her
what's
name on
it?
Kyoshi?
Oh, Suki.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Suki. And then even like this last episode seeing him like with the the
princess.
prince. Yeah.
Even that was, I will say, that's another thing I really liked the change of is in the original show there's like this love triangle between him and I think his name is Han.
Oh yeah, yep, the guy who was
There was
supposed
like a
to
weird
marry.
love
Yeah.
triangle, and that guy was like a Chad. I'm doing quotations. He was
Yeah.
like he's just like a shit character.
Like
Admiral
douche,
Choi.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a douche, and like him and Sokka fight over UA. And
Yeah.
like and then in this show, he's just like, yeah, you know, you and I are betrothed. And then she shot me down, and I was like, okay, cool. And I'm like, wow. And this
Yeah.
guy is like, and he's like, Sokka, we'd love your insight because we don't have a lot of knowledge. Like you've been on the field, you've seen it. And I'm like, wow, look at how
Yeah.
great. And I'm like, this is lovely. I'm a big fan of this change. We don't need the love triangle, you know, and he ends up dying, protecting his people. And I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? Good
Yeah.
change. And I was like, and the Sokka stuff works. Like, I feel like
Right.
yeah, like they give him the
It
character. It makes sense. There's some changes, but like the general like characteristics are there
Yeah.
and it
I think
works.
there's like no wonder that we are gravitating towards Zuko and Sokka
Yeah.
because they're getting some of the better development as
Yeah.
characters. I mean, Aang is getting stuff, but Aang's whole I don't know, there's something
It's
off.
there's
I
something
can't
off.
I
I
can't
can't pinpoint
decide
it.
it I miss the joy of the animated show from his
Yeah.
character. A lot of his scenes are very like heavy and like
Yeah.
dark. And I know there's that in the animated show and I
Yeah.
know like obviously he's going to have these struggles, but you miss like his childlike self.
Yeah,
He doesn't feel like a kid in this show. He feels like
yeah.
more of like an adult because everything's just so heavy subject matter. And I don't know if that's what it is. It's just something like I don't mind the actor playing him. I think the actor's
I don't
good,
either.
but
There's
there's
something
just
off. There's
something,
something off
yeah, there's
about
something
his,
that I'm
yeah.
not connecting with in the way that I did the animated show, and it's making it hard to see him in scenes with other people because there's still him and Zuko was like the first time where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like this dynamic works, but with other characters with Aang, I haven't felt that.
I think like I don't know. I think and I know we talked about this in the beginning where the fact that they changed him from running away to him just being like I'm going to clear my head and just happened to get in a like a rainstorm and then fall whereas
Right,
in the show original show he is running away from his duties as the avatar. And that is like the basis of that storm episode where you parallel Zuko and Aang and they're not so different. Like they both
right,
have these like a huge weight on their shoulders and the way they go about that is very different. You know, Aang is like dodging his destiny,
right.
and he needs to learn how to embrace it. Kind of like with Air, it's like you evade and like he has to like face things head on. And I think I don't know, it's like that dynamic isn't set the same, which would be
Yeah,
fine, but then they like really push on this like you weren't there. You didn't
right.
save us. You're not like we don't need you. You don't, you know, like you didn't help us. You didn't protect us. And it just feels like I don't know, like and then the avatar speeches to him I don't feel like are very helpful, you
No,
know?
it's weird because it's like they're
Yeah.
not really providing like he had the speeches with the guy from the
Kuruk, the water
yeah,
tribe,
and I
yeah.
was like, what? It just felt like kind of a waste of time because I'm like, you're
Yeah.
not really telling him anything that I mean, I suppose
Yeah.
like him saying something about like how the spirit, the elemental,
Yeah.
like that helped him, but it
But they're
just I
like,
don't
you need to do
know.
it alone. You can't have
Right.
friends. You can't have help. And I'm like, what are we talking about? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
it just
know.
feels weird and
I think there's
I
just
don't
like a
know.
disconnect. I think I don't know. It's weird because it's like one of my favorite episodes that I really like is in book 2. It's the Guru. I don't know if you remember it, where like he's learning how to master the avatar state by like opening his chakras. And it's like based on like fear and guilt and doubt. And like basically you're drawing from things that happened in the past and like past episodes to like overcome his like problems. Like for instance, the one episode we haven't gotten and we might still get it, but it's the deserter with Zhong Zhong where he learns to firebend and he burns Katara. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that episode.
Yeah, I vaguely do.
And then like he doesn't want to firebend because he's so ashamed of what he did, but then like that's one of the things he has to overcome is it's like you need to learn all 4 elements, like you have to let go of that like guilt and that shame over that, like you
Yeah.
know. So it's like I feel like I don't know, it's like I just feel like they Aang's character is just like we're really supposed to focus on how he was gone for 100 years, the war is happening, and how he let everyone down, or everyone sees it that way. Like you let all these people down, you let all this happen, you weren't there for us.
Yeah.
And it's just like that is his character, and we don't get any
Right.
of like the silly side or the
Yeah.
fun side, the playful side of him.
Right.
I feel like that part we're not seeing. Like I know we get a lot of like exposition of him talking. And this is something I had someone wrote a comment about it, and I thought it was really interesting that it feels like someone was talking about how they felt like one of the problems with the dialogue is it felt like characters were like talking about the plot and about their feelings and thoughts without actually like having a conversation.
Right.
Like they're just like it's not an organic like admission of guilt or admission of
Right.
whatever. It's like, let me tell you the plot. Let me tell you my feelings and not like show that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that a lot with Aang specifically. Where I feel
Yeah.
like we're not getting that genuine connection with like stuff going on. And it's
Yeah.
like more of a exposition
Yeah, there's
forced
way too
thing.
much exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something missing too with Aang and like his innocence and like I don't know because in the animated show like when you would see him in like these playful moments, you're like reminded that he's just a kid.
Yeah.
And in this show it's like I always feel like you don't see that, you don't get his innocence, so it's like I don't know, there's his dynamic gets taken away because of that.
Yeah.
He becomes like more one-dimensional, which
Yeah, which is sad because Aang's a really
yeah,
complex, like
right.
interesting character.
But it's weird how they could
Yeah.
do Zuko so well as this
Yeah.
dynamic character, and then Aang, it's so opposite. It's weird how they can do some really well
Well,
and some
that's why
not.
that's when I started to kind of like I remember I was like a little iffy on Aang in the beginning, but
Yeah,
especially when we get to like Zuko backstory into the Blue Spirit and they so focus heavily on Zuko's past, but essentially we already did all of Aang's stuff of that from episode 1, so it
right.
means that like we can't have that direct connection.
Yeah,
And it's like, but why did we do that then, but then also not bring anything else into it here that like I don't know. I was like, I
right.
feel like there's that disconnect where it's like the Zuko stuff works, like
Yeah,
I feel like they get it so
they
right, but it's
do.
like, but why can't we get this part right? Like,
Yeah.
why is that like that's not like is somebody writing Zuko
It
and
feels like
someone
it's two
else like
different
writing
writers.
here? Because I'm like, these two story plots are
Right.
so like my attention span is so different between here and here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's hard because it's like it would be so much easier to if Zuko's storylines weren't what they were, it'd be so much easier to just be like, oh, they're just not hitting the mark. But it's like
yeah,
they are, but they aren't. Like
it's weird.
even with like Iroh, I feel like they're writing him well, and it's like you can feel his complexity and you can
Yeah.
feel the relationship between him and Zuko, and it feels genuine, and like I
Yeah.
feel emotion when they're together.
Yeah.
And it's just there's something that's like not clicking for
Yeah,
me
I don't
with
know.
and the problem being the show is about it's about the
Yeah.
avatar
Yeah.
and so if you can't
Kind of a
get that
problem.
character right, the show's not gonna like no
Yeah.
matter what you do, like if you can't get the main character right, that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah. Because I kind of like I did think it was interesting and it makes sense is when Zhao kills the moon spirit, which kind of played out pretty similarly enough, where it was a little bit different, but it played out pretty much like the actual like progression is the same. And then Aang joins with the ocean spirit to become
Yes.
like the giant water monster. I liked, although we didn't need to hear it 3 times. I think 3 different times it got mentioned. He's not the Avatar anymore. He's fused with the spirit.
Right.
And
I'm
then
like,
like
we get it.
four characters said that, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, I got it the first time. Like,
We
but
understand.
that was a kind of a new thing, like where that wasn't something in the original show. I kind of like that it was like he was like selfless sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
To help the water tribe. Like I thought that
Right.
worked, but then it like didn't at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it works in the sense that like, oh, we know Aang's been feeling this like
Guilt and
guilt
yeah.
about not being there, and this is his chance to like sacrifice himself, and like that's what the Avatar does is to save the world. But then within like 5 minutes, he's back down on Earth, and the princess has sacrificed herself, and it's just like
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like okay, he just like tried it out for a minute.
Yeah. So that like
Yeah,
worked and then didn't at the same
that's what
time.
I think you mean about
Um,
like if only it was a little bit worse because it has those potential moments and then it just doesn't pay off.
Right. I think that's part of it. I wrote a note. So there's a part where Zuko comes back and he's like, Aang, and he's like, you gotta stop Zhao. He's crazy. And he just is like, no, this is about, what about us? And I was like, what about us? What about
everything we've been through?
I literally wrote, what about trust? Yeah, Zuko to Aang. That was the first thing I thought of it. That made me laugh because I was like, that's not even intentionally for that, but that's the first thing.
No, but
like, what about us? But okay, I'm a little confused. This part I don't really understand. So and again, I hate to keep comparing, but again, you're doing a direct adaptation.
It's based off the show, so you have to compare,
So in the original show, this also doesn't really make sense anyway, but so Zhao somehow got to the spirit library in the desert that Wan Shitong is learning about, and that's how he learns about the ocean and the moon spirit. And they don't really explain that or like how he's out there, how he found it. I don't know, whatever. But that's how he knows about the ocean, the moon spirit. In this show, some random fire sage is like, let me tell you about the history of the moon and the ocean and the water tribe secrets. And I'm like, why does a fire sage know all this information? I'm like, that feels a little weird that this like random guy is like, let me tell you about everything. I know everything. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it didn't really make sense to me.
So that was a little odd. And then, okay, now here's the part where I gotta admit I laughed a little bit. So Sokka's protecting Yue, right? Like, he's like, take care of my daughter, protect her. Also, I gotta say it, I'm so sorry. Yue's wig was atrocious. You could see her hair poking out. You could see her hair poking out from under it sometimes. And I was like, what are we doing, guys? Like, get it together. I liked the actress, and like I thought the changes to Yue, like making her a waterbender makes sense because she's part ocean, like she's part moon spirit. Sorry, she's part of the moon spirit, so that makes sense. I get that. I'm like, cool, that checks out. She's bending dessert. I'm like, I'm about that. I'd bend myself some ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm into that. But they're running along. There's some debris falling, and this little girl is like, ah, and then Momo pushes her out of the way and gets crushed by rocks.
He jump kicks her out of the way, which also that wouldn't work because she's so tiny.
So tiny. And then it's like, oh no, Momo, he's barely alive. And I was like, wait, Momo's in the show? I was like, Momo, we don't even have a connection with Momo.
No.
I was like, is this how they save their animation budget, by killing Momo?
And then bringing him back?
It was so weird. And then I'm like, is this how they decided they needed to get to like the spirit pool because they weren't doing the and like
maybe, and they just needed a way. Like, it was a weird choice.
So weird, because I'm like, we haven't even established a relationship with Momo. No. We don't, like, I love original Momo, but I don't give a shit about this new Momo.
No.
He's barely been in the show. He hasn't stolen anything. He's not pulling Zhao's hood over his head like.
I would have been cool. Like, honestly, I would have been okay if he had died there because it was like,
But I laughed because I was like, did he just
it was a weird choice.
Jump kick a child?
Yeah, it was a weird choice.
Kangaroo kick a child.
I just that that was a weird choice. I remember silly. Like I just was kind of sitting there like, what are we doing?
I was like, this is a little silly.
It was a choice for sure.
But I thought like all the like moon spirit, ocean spirit stuff, I thought that all worked. It was played out pretty similar to the show. I liked that they changed the color gradient. Yue sacrifices herself. Iroh's like, I'm gonna fuck you up if you kill this moon spirit. We're gonna lay hands. I thought so a spirit knife was new. I thought that was fine. That makes sense. Like there's like a special weapon that would kill the spirit. And I'm like, yeah, that checks out. I'm cool with that. And I thought the fighting I did really like the choreography of the fight between Zuko and Zhao. I thought that was cool. Well. I think the actor who plays Zuko, like he's doing good work. He's eating up these scenes. He's cooking.
He understood.
Yeah. Dallas, I think his name was Dallas something.
You said Dallas,
something. I don't remember what his last name was, but he's cooking. Keep it up. A+ gold star.
Yeah, MVP award.
Keep it up. He's got the choreography down. He's got the acting down. There's a few times where he like almost sounded like Dante Bosco a little bit. And I'm like, oh, he's channeling.
Like he did his homework. He was like, I'm gonna take this character and I'm gonna fucking roll with it,
as the kids would say. So I thought like story elements.
I did not like that you said that, but carry on.
Okay. He's eating a snack.
You're making it worse. Just
Okay.
carry on.
Okay, carry on. Well, that's all I had, is that I thought that like
Okay.
the water tribe stuff, I was saying I thought that the water tribe stuff worked like that. I thought those story elements worked, minus unfortunately all the Katara stuff. I
Yeah, it
was not
was,
on board with
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then like, so are we saying that, and I guess it can't be for sure because the show ended, but the way they set it up is as if they're already leaving the water tribe.
Yeah, I think that's what it's
So
supposed to imply.
they were there for 3 days and then they're
Yes.
just gonna head out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like, it would have made sense. Like, here's what makes sense to me, right? If you're gonna do the whole like, all right, Katara's a master. Aang, you gotta learn to waterbend. You gotta learn these elements so you know you can be a better avatar. Why don't we stay here, help them rebuild, hone our training, and then into book 2, they're like, oh yeah, we've been here a couple weeks. You know, we helped clear things up. We helped the dead. I know I was about to burp. I'm sorry.
I know.
And then we head out.
Yeah.
And like we could do that time skip off screen. I'm a little concerned, Hannah, that going into book 2, and assumedly they're going to be going back to Amashu because we end it with Azula taking over Amashu,
Right.
and that's where Aang and Azula meet is Amashu in the original show. They counteract. They go, God damn it!
Why did your voice?
Because I'm sick. It happens. I don't know what to tell you. My sinuses are fucked.
You sound like Goofy.
Yuck.
That was actually a pretty good impression.
She was kind of surprised they did that.
I know, that was pretty impressive.
Not too bad. It kind of I channeled my inner Goof. I'm
no,
sorry.
they're setting it up to have them like gone. Like
Yeah.
the final scene with them in the water tribe was like,
Yeah.
I can't stay. I have to help Aang. And
But it's like, so are we to assume that Aang is gonna be? Is he gonna learn waterbending off screen, or is he like learning waterbending and also going to be learning earthbending cohesively at the same? It's just
perhaps,
weird.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm worried about pacing
Yeah.
of season 2 because I think book 1 is not the strongest book in the original show. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like there is definitely some episodes like, yeah, that could be cut. Great Divide, yeah, get rid of it. Bato, yeah, we don't need it. The Water Rating Scroll, most of the elements we don't need. But like, book 2, like once we get into book 2, like that stuff is like vital. Like once you get into like Zuko and Iroh's journey, losing Appa, getting to Ba Sing Se, follow Ba Sing Se. It's very time centric, and I'm a little worried with if it's, let's say it's also going to be 8 episodes,
right.
like, you know, like Appa's gone for like 7 to 8, like I think it's like almost 7 or 8 episodes in the show.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried we're going to get a thing where like Appa gets stolen and then he's back the next episode because
like
of the way
because
of the way the timing works. And I'm like, I feel like some of these, like, especially with like Zuko, one of the things I really like, a decision I really like, and I think makes a lot of sense, is to show the passage of time through Zuko's hair growth.
Yeah.
Because he cuts off his ponytail, you know, they're banished, and then his hair starts to grow out. And then you can see like how long it's been based on where his hair's at.
And then he becomes long-haired Zuko.
Yeah. But I'm like, I'm a little worried about like the way they're going to do passage of time based on, because the season, I feel like they didn't really do a great job expressing how much time had gone by.
No.
And I'm like a little worried about that with this like book 2 like coverage, like season 2, because they're not calling it like book 1 water, book 2
right.
earth. It's just
like
season 1,
season 2.
I'm a little worried about how they're going to cover this stuff because it's so time specific. Like the amount of time Appa's gone is like, I think like 6 weeks or something, or 5 weeks, you know, like 2 months he's gone for. And like the passage of time when, you know, like Zuko and Aang meet and then meet again and Ba Sing Se, like they interact, I think in like books, like episode 7 or 8, and then they don't see each other until the finale. Like it's a very, I don't know, like the timing, I feel like I'm a little worried about how that's going to work. Yeah. I feel like book 2 is like the back half of book 2 is such a solid, like, oh, it's so good. I love like Ba Sing Se is such a solid arc in that show. I love Ba Sing Se arc. It's like, I think 7 episodes or something.
Yeah.
It's tight, it's cohesive, but I'm a little worried about how they're gonna make that work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe they have taken the criticisms and they've like clearly if they have a different showrunner and writers, maybe they're thinking about those things that I'm like, I hope it will be better. Like I don't want it to be worse. I would want it to improve, but I have to say I'm a little worried about pacing specifically
Yeah.
of this book too.
That and if like the Aang story doesn't improve.
Because especially like Aang's character goes through so much in this second season, you know, like from losing Appa to like this, like losing at Ba Sing Se. Like there's a lot of like, he has a lot of like growth and like difficulties and things in this book that I don't know. I'm nervous about that. Yeah, Aang especially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's like my main concern going forward. Overall, I guess we could do overall thoughts.
Yeah.
Now that we're done, I'm kind of where I was in the beginning. I think it's fine. I'd say maybe I'd give it like maybe a 7, like a 6.5 to a
Yeah,
7.
I was gonna say like maybe like a honestly, I would give it like a 5.5 or a 6.
Yeah, because like
Just
I guess the way that I look at like how I'd rate something is I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. So like somewhere around a 6.5 to a 7 is where I'm
yeah.
like I feel good.
Just
Yeah.
it wasn't one of those shows that made me want to watch another episode. Like I sometimes when I end an episode of a show, I'm like, oh, I need to watch the next one, and I didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think like there was a lot of things that were just okay about it.
Yeah.
I think like if I'm just talking about Zuko's storyline, that's like a
Oh.
9.
Yeah, they I will say I give them so much credit for nailing that
Right.
character and those scenes I thought
And
were, and if that was the whole show, oh yeah. Ooh, a
yeah.
sweet 9.5 out of
And
10.
I feel like a lot of the credit goes to the actor.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because there's a lot of shows where like you hear like if this person wasn't cast, the show wouldn't be what it was. Like if you think about The Office,
Oh yeah, Mike
with Steve Carell,
yeah.
and like there's just certain shows where you have to have a certain person and they're just right for the role. And I feel like this person like really embodies the character and like you can tell has like done a lot of like research and really like put time into like trying to bring that character to life in a live action sense. So yeah, I think if I'm just looking at Zuko, it's like a 9 out of 10 for me. But like if I think about the show overall, I'm like maybe like a 6. It's just a little bit above average, but it's not anything. I wouldn't like go to people and be like, you need to watch this show.
Yeah. What I'm curious about, because I don't know anybody who's done this, but I'd love to hear the perspective of someone who's just watched the Netflix show.
Right.
Without any knowledge of the past. Because I feel like, at least from like the Netflix, like it was like the #1 show on Netflix worldwide. Yeah. And I did get some numbers, like overall numbers, like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Netflix ratings. I feel like people generally enjoyed it. Like I feel like the ratings and reception was kind of all over the place. Like some people hated it, some people loved it, some people liked it. And it's kind of like all over. But I think like a general audience seemed to like it enough that they're going to renew it. They already renewed 2 more seasons.
Yeah.
It has room to grow.
Yeah, because I sent Alyssa a video of these guys I watched the reactions to, and they had both seen the animated show, and they were very like kind of like us. They're like, ugh, like,
yeah,
there's like it's not as great. But yeah, it would be interesting to get someone's perspective who this is like their intro to the series.
Yeah, and I don't know the problem is I wish I knew someone personally.
Yeah,
because everyone I know who's watched the show has also seen the animated.
Well, so, and I think like I'm sure a lot of their audience is coming from people who've watched the original show,
right?
And like obviously like there's shows on Netflix that like if I see something in the top 10 and it looks somewhat interesting, I'll be like, yeah, I'll try it out.
Yeah.
Like even if I know nothing about it, that's just like that happens. But yeah, I feel like a lot of their audience probably is coming from people who watched the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be interesting to get it from a perspective of someone who doesn't have any of the knowledge. like to draw off of and to compare it
Yeah,
to.
because
So
I tried to not to, but it was so hard for me to not immediately compare things to the
yeah.
original show.
Well, and that's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Like,
and it because I mean I think the
yeah,
problem is like I love the original show. It's like one of my favorite shows
right.
ever. I've seen it so many like multiple times. I went through it with you during COVID, and
Hmm.
that was like nice to like because you had seen
I
episodes
had seen
growing up
episodes, but
and
not all the way through.
not all the
Yeah.
way through and not all in order, and like going through Korra. On a side note, the Avatar movie got delayed till
Yeah, I
2026,
saw
which
that.
like yikes. That's
Yeah, I saw
upsetting.
that.
So we'll have to wait a while before we can talk about that. But
Yeah.
I like yeah, I guess just to go over that since we're already talking about the end. So just for some numbers, because I was curious. So 7.2 out of 10 IMDb, 60% Rotten Tomatoes, 4.1 out of 5 Netflix ratings. That one I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Um, so like things are kind of all over the place, but I also wanted to share one comment I found in the wild. I was on Reddit, the Avatar subreddit, because I was just kind of seeing what people online, I will say, tend to be, especially in like these communities, tend to be a lot more critical than
Yeah.
than a general audience would
Well, because
be.
they tend to be more invested and
Yeah,
like more of
which
like
I
a.
get,
So
but
yeah.
and usually more silly, but this
Yeah.
comment made me laugh because we did talk about it. All right, let me turn it this way so I can read it all in one go. Okay. Grant's performance in episode 1 was so bad that even Paku refuses to acknowledge the betrothal necklace.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was horrible.
Because they did get rid of that plot point where like Paku's supposed to be but engaged to her grandmother and she left because she's like, fuck your culture,
Yeah.
I'm out. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
that's a ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think it's fine. I think there's room for improvement. I think that's the
Well, yeah.
positive outlook that I should have with this is that I hope it's not worse. You know, I want to see it succeed because I love the franchise, but
Yeah.
I would hope I want it to be better.
Yeah, and I don't like to judge a show off of its first season.
Yeah,
Unless it's different if it's just like a mini series and that's all there
right.
is. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think shows need a little bit of time to figure themselves
Yeah,
out.
I
I
agree.
think though we should do
Yeah, do you
our
want to
top
like
three
top
characters.
3 characters and maybe like favorite and least favorite episode, maybe?
I mean, my favorite episode I already
Yeah,
said
the
was
spirits.
the spirits. I honestly don't remember least. It was one of the first four.
My second runner up, I really liked the Kyoshi Island episode.
Yeah, that one was
I thought
good.
that was a really cohesive, well done episode.
Oh,
So
no,
that
my least
yeah.
favorite was the one where they threw 500 storylines into.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out I'm going back to my Into the Dark.
Yeah,
Yeah, Into the
there
Dark, I
was
think
just
was
too much.
my
I
yeah.
couldn't keep track.
It was by throwing Northern Air Temple, Jet, Boomy, and like other storylines, it just like got to
Yeah.
be too much. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, let's do
Top three
top three.
characters.
And this is kind of like a speed ranking because it's just
Okay.
off.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna
Zuko's number one.
I was gonna go 3, 2, 1, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we both already know our
Okay,
number
fine.
ones,
Zuko's number
right?
one.
Okay.
I would say number three, I would give just off the series, like what I've seen, I would actually give number three to Iroh.
Okay.
I feel like his character, um, we get to see some background. You get to kind of learn about why he is the way he is. And it's nice to see his care for Zuko when you know how Zuko's father is towards him. And I've liked a lot of his scenes, his dynamic, and I think they've done a good job of embodying the character of Zuko or of Iroh, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
into the live action version. So I would put him as three.
Okay. Trying to say 3. I do really like Iroh's character. I need a little more. I think I need like a little bit more because Iroh is such a good character in the
Yeah.
original show that I'm like, he's doing a solid job. I approve. I'm here for it. Mm, I have to say, I do really like the portrayal of Ozai. I'm
Yeah.
really digging it. Like, I might have Iroh and Ozai together.
Yeah, that would be
Oh,
my number four.
this is something else I forgot to bring up and I'll do it now. In the original show, Iroh and Ozai never have dialogue together. They never talk to each other in the
Right.
entire show, which I think was deliberate. And so I've really been enjoying that dynamic of their like the way that they interact together
Yeah.
because we that's not something we had seen. And I'm like,
Right.
this makes sense. This works for me. So I'd say those two are
Yeah.
pretty close to number 3,
Yeah.
Ozai and Iroh.
I
And
would
I
agree.
like and like I know in the original show he's like the shrouded figure. You don't know what he looks like. But again, at this point, like I don't know, in live action it's kind of weird to have him be a shadowy,
And
like,
also, like,
mwahaha villain.
I love to see Daniel Day
And I
Kim
mean,
on my
Daniel Day
screen.
Kim is fantastic, and
Yeah,
also he already played Hiroshi Sato anyway. You know, he already is in this universe as
right.
a voice. So like I think that works to have him like be known and like the interactions he has with his family. I think it all works for me.
Yeah.
So those two I'd say are tied for third.
Yeah. Number two, I would give to Sokka. I think that out of the main three characters, talking about Aang, Katara, and Sokka, he's had the most like insight into his character. Like, um, I feel like his character makes sense to me because it's like, oh, like he had to protect this whole tribe, and like, of course he's gonna be overprotective of Katara, but he also like towards the end of this season, he's kind of letting her have her moments. And I just have enjoyed his character. Um I think again, they're doing a good job of portraying him compared to his animated version. Um yeah, so I'm enjoying him, and I think the actors playing him is also doing a good job of like embodying that character as well.
Yeah, I agree. Number two is Sokka. I think
Yeah.
what's interesting is I think his character growth is like a little bit different than
Yeah,
the original show, but it still works.
it
I think
works.
like it's not as like I feel like cartoon Sokka is very like I'm a man,
Yeah.
women to the kitchens, you know, and but he learns and he grows, and that's why we
Right.
love him because we love a man who learns from women
Yeah.
and like grows from that. And he's also again he's like what 15, so like
Yeah,
you
he's
know
yeah.
yeah. So I'm like I feel like he's less of that and more of like intuitive and like he learns from people and is actively listening and like knows what his strengths are and like especially like when you get to the Northern Water Tribe, I like that he's like, oh, you want my guidance. He's
Right.
like, oh, okay. And like and I like that he like is silly, but you can see like those personality and that characteristics from that show that like
Yeah.
are carried through this actor. And I think the actor's doing a really good job as
Yeah.
well, like portraying the
Like,
character. And it's like it's different in a way that works. So I'm like I'm happy
yeah.
with the changes they've made that make sense for this version of the show.
Yeah, and I like that he like doubts himself and that he
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have the confidence, and it makes sense because you get to see like his father didn't believe in him in the
Hmm.
backstory scenes we
Right.
get. Yeah, and I think part of the reason why they make him not as I think it's like a product of the times, like having
Yeah,
him not
like
be so like misogynistic and
yeah.
like of an asshole. I think that
Right.
probably has to do with like an audience of people in
Yeah. I think they changed it in a way that makes sense where there's like
right, but it's
elements of
still
that, but tweaked a
yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Right. So I think, yeah. And I mean, Zuko's very,
Oh.
very far front runner for me.
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah.
just think, like, even the first time I saw Zuko, I was like, oh, like,
Well,
I
episode
think this is
one.
going to be good
Yeah.
because I think I'm already sensing this character. And
Yeah.
again, the actor, like, props to you. Um, I want to look up his actual name because
His
I
name's
want
Dallas. It's Dallas something. Dallas
to.
Liu,
Okay.
maybe. We mentioned his name in the first when we did the first episode. I think it's Dallas Liu
Oh,
or
yeah. Dallas James Liu.
okay.
Yeah. I just think he's doing a really good job.
I feel like he also emotes really well. Like I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
the expression and you can like I think that's maybe what's missing with Aang is with Zuko especially, you can like feel the emotions and you can see them without
Yeah.
him having to say like, "Oh, I'm so, I'm
Right. You
angry,
can
I'm
sense his
upset." You
anger.
can feel like the and I think maybe that maybe also just might be experience, like,
Well, and he's
you know?
his so the actor's 22. So like
Okay.
he's it looks like he's been in some
Right.
things before. So like he has the
It can be
experience.
some of it can just be experience and just like,
Right. But I do think that he's definitely yeah, I agree. Like
yeah.
you can feel his emotion. Like the last episode where
Yeah.
he just like on the bridge when he's
Yeah.
getting told that his father like never intended to have him
Yeah.
come back. Like you can
Right.
feel it just coming
Like
through, and
pissed
it
off. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so nice to just like show not tell is
Yeah.
such like an
Right.
important thing, and it's so nice to have a character where it's like
Yeah.
I know how he's feeling, but he doesn't have to say like I'm upset. I'm yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe like Aang's actor maybe doesn't have that experience to like to emote his face, like well enough
Yeah.
yet, which is fine, but I feel excuse me, sorry. But I feel like maybe that's maybe part of the disconnect is it's like
Yeah.
I don't feel like he I don't know, it's like I get that he like, it's like he's saying the things and we're hit people are saying things to him, but I feel like it's just like not connecting fully.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's fair because
I think he's like 13. Like
yeah,
he's, you know, young, and I don't
he's
think he's
younger, and
acted.
honestly, I'm looking at his
Yeah, I don't think he's acted much.
television, and it looks like just little episodes of TV
Yeah.
shows. Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely like a thing of age, and like
Yeah.
I think
Which there's room to grow, you
right, and
know.
I think it's also hard for I think it's hard sometimes for children,
Oh yeah.
especially to like be able to emote that without
Yeah.
like saying things because I feel like
Right.
there's and even like as a kid you don't know all those emotions. Like
Right. Yeah.
and so it's hard
Yeah.
to embody those emotions when you don't even really know them.
Yeah.
So I
Although
think
I
that's
will say, just not to take away from that character, but like young Katara, she can emote.
well, yeah. Yeah.
She nailed that
And
trauma scene.
but that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
some kids kind of
Yeah.
can
Some
and
kids
some
can
can't.
and some yeah, right.
But yeah, so I think there's definitely a
Yeah.
factor of the age playing into this.
I think so.
And also too, like just some people just can emote really well.
Yeah,
Like
right.
there's actors and actresses who just do very well in roles
Yeah.
with a lot of complex emotions.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, I mean, I think
Zuko's
like
carrying. He's a true
yeah,
king.
yeah, I think like you know, I'll remain optimistic
I
about
think, yeah.
the new season, and I'll kind of keep an open mind.
I think they
Yeah,
said they're writing this season. I don't think they're filming. I don't know if there's like a window for when they plan to release it. Um, you know, but I would imagine
yeah,
like kind of with Stranger Things that they're gonna want to kind of have a like a normal timeline. Otherwise, you
right,
end up having them be 6 years older,
yeah,
pretending that they're, you know, 14.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what they do.
And I'm curious about this new like a new showrunner and like new writers and stuff. Let's
Yeah,
see.
it's going to be
What?
interesting because I feel like that has potential to be beneficial. I also sometimes worry when new showrunners come in, it kind of completely changes the show, and so I wonder how they're going to handle that.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to read the here's an article. Netflix Avatar: The Last Airbender season 2, what we know so far, 16 hours ago. Um, okay.
doesn't look like they have a release date yet or
Yeah.
like a time frame, not that I'm
Yeah,
seeing.
no set release date. Let's see. I wouldn't yeah, I would think for maybe 2026 is what I guess.
Yeah.
Because the special effects, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously when it comes out, we'll cover it and stuff. But yeah, I think that
And
there's room to
also
grow.
the other thing is because they've greenlit 2 seasons means they could potentially film like back to back for the
Right, and
next two
then
seasons.
release and edit. Yeah. But yeah, so I
Yeah.
think, obviously when news comes out, we'll cover it, but
Yeah.
I think that's probably good for now. I mean,
Yeah. I think yeah, I think I don't have anything else
no.
specific. Yeah, but we're done. I'm optimistic. I feel like I will say the one thing that I was really nervous about that I think they did pretty well was the special effects on the bending. I remember when we initially were talking about
Yeah.
it that I was like, especially comparing to like the movie where it was just like dog
Yeah.
shit. I'm happy to
Some of
say
the
that
airbending
I
is a
mean, the
little
flying was a little weird. I think they
weird.
got better with the airbending. I
I
think it
just think like
improved.
it's so
Yeah.
much easier, I think, to do the water and fire
Oh yeah,
bending.
I think so.
Airbending's kind of
Because we
hard.
didn't see a lot of earth bending and we didn't see
No.
like the air bending is I feel like is hard because it's wind,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but I thought the bending was better than what I was afraid of. So
Yeah.
that was and the special effects were pretty good, you know,
Yeah.
all things considered. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But anyways, thank you for
yeah.
listening.
Thank you for listening to our research break.
Yeah, we have our Instagram if you want to give us your opinions on Avatar. We have a letterbox account if you'd like to see some of our ratings on things we've watched. And we have an email, r3podcasts@gmail.com. We will be back
We will.
with at some point with
Something.
another research break.
With something.
With
Yeah.
something.
With something. Bye.
Bye. We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music.
He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat.
Okay, save that. Save. Okay.
Save.
Let me stop the recording.